Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We got a pretty fun Wednesday night slate here, pretty packed with games tonight. In this one, we're taking a look at the Hawks headed to Milwaukee, taking on those Bucks who scored 142 points last night on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Take a look at some of the best bets in this one. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com as well with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you today, including that player props video. Came back 3-2 last night. We'll look to build off of that momentum tonight. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to FDPicks.com or DKPicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, Bucks are -5 at home as they play a back-to-back here. That total has been rising from 237, 236 to 240. Dropped back down a little bit when it hit 240 as people smack that under. It's a scary total either way you want to look at it, but do like the Bucks in this game. We'll come back to it, though. Yeah, it's a huge slate, 12 games on this Wednesday. The Red Hot Celtics -7 at Charlotte. We got the Bulls -5 at Detroit. Suns are +7 on a back-to-back without three of their key guys at Miami. The Thunder +15 at Minnesota. Lakers -5 at Houston. Apparently, we have to take LeBron James seriously for being listed as questionable now since he just missed his last game.
Yep.
Magic +9 at the Pelicans, who got blown out without Brandon Ingram last night. Raptors -2 at the Spurs. The Knicks are +8.5 at Dallas. Nuggets -5 now at Sacramento. The Blazers +17 at Utah. Yep. And Washington is +4 at the Clippers. This is the most intriguing game in terms of contenders tonight, in terms of contenders that are actually closer to full strength now that the Hawks have John Collins back. They've been playing better defense, so their defensive rating is about 7 points better per 100 possessions with him. But, will they be able to play good enough defense to slow down this Bucks team is a bigger question. The Bucks absolutely on fire, really since losing badly to the Nuggets. That's 14 games ago. They're number 1 in offensive rating, number 3 in pace. Their defense has not been very good either, and they've gone over an 11 of 13. The only two unders since the All-Star break still hit 236 and 230. So it's not like they're going way under at any point. And the Hawks are a team that's given up 117.5 over their last 10. Both these teams are bottom 10 in three-point defense. Hawks much worse on the road. I think that's where we go in terms of them just being much worse on both ends of the floor on the road. You can point to their offense dropping and their defense dropping, but I think we worry a little bit about the Hawks being able to keep pace with this one because they did beat the Bucks at home twice this season. Well, Drew Holiday was out for one of those, and Chris Middleton was out for the other. And if Drew Holiday is at full strength now and able to limit Trae Young, the Hawks don't have a plan B. It's Trae Young or bust.
Yeah.
They don't. Their offense completely falls apart if he can't get it going. So he had some nice numbers in both of those meetings with one of those guys out, with Drew not really fully recovered from his ankle.
Right.
In one of those games. The team shot 42% from deep, hit 15 threes, and that's really the only way to keep pace with the Bucks is if you can exploit the way they give up threes. But yeah, Atlanta, they're 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 road games now. Pace is very slow. They've gone under in 5 of 8. I'm not taking a Bucks under at this point because, especially the way they've been ramping up lately since the All-Star break, just some huge totals, as you mentioned, scoring 142 last night. And interesting, they started the season struggling on back-to-backs. They started the season really struggling on any situation of short rest because they were tired after the finals run. They had a couple guys playing the Olympics too, clearly kind of easing into the season. Well, they've ramped up since that Nuggets loss, as I said. And in their last 3 back-to-backs, they're scoring 133 and giving up 120. So I still kind of like the over here. The Hawks, they can light it up if Trae gets going. I would consider teasing it down because really what I want is the Bucks at -1 here. Whether you do it with this game or another, I would maybe double up with your teasers here and get one in game to get the over down at 236 or maybe a little lower if you get it at the right time. Or with the other game we're going to talk about, which is Nuggets over the Kings, same kind of 5-point spread there. I think the Nuggets definitely get the win in Sacramento. So that's my strategy for this game.
Yeah, I like it. Like you kind of mentioned, there's just a bunch of conflicting data here that kind of we could see either in terms of the total specifically, right? I think in terms of the total, 240.5 is a lot of points. It's not out of the realm of possibility by any means. I mean, the Bucks scored 142 on the Thunder last night. Thunder probably a better defensive team than the Hawks. At least they're as choppy. But the Hawks have been very slow on the road lately, and that's another thing that I really like to look at here. I mean, they're 2-6 straight up, 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 games on the road. 110 offensive rating, 113 defensive rating. That's basically where they are on the season on the road, which is why they have the worst road against the spread record on the season. 10-22 against the spread on the road this season. Doesn't matter who they're playing on the road. They are not that good. I mean, we just saw them, put up a stinker, I believe, against Detroit as well. Just so there's plenty of reason to think, that this team isn't really suited to sort of stay with the Bucks on offense. The only question is, are the Bucks going to maintain their scoring on the second leg of that back-to-back? And as you mentioned, I mean, they have, in their last 3 on the second leg of a back-to-back, they've put up 133, 137, and 128 in those last 3. I think that's a little bit more indicative. I mean, that's all since January. And this team, they haven't been consistent since January, but I would say definitely, since the All-Star break, they've been on a tear in those 6 games. They've won their last 5. I think this is where they start to pick up, as we mentioned, and the reason that we like them to pull out the game the other night against the Heat. We like the Heat to cover that game for sure, but we know that we also mentioned Milwaukee's about to go on sort of their end of season tear that we saw them go on last season to come into the playoffs super hot and handle the Heat in the first round. So I think that's where they are as far as what you can expect on this total. 5.5 is a little bit much for me for the way that Milwaukee's been playing at home and the way that they haven't been necessarily blowing teams out, only winning by an average of about 4 points at home this season. So that is underneath that 5.5 spread. I love your idea of just getting this one down. Obviously, we don't always love to recommend teasers where we can avoid it. But if you want to take a Bucks money line of any kind, or at least get that down to 1, you're going to need some help there. I'm not opposed to an under in terms of Bucks winning this game with the money line there, and then under in terms of the total at 240.5. Mostly just because, like I said, that pace that Atlanta's playing at, slowing it down to about the 5th slowest pace on the road as of late. They are the 2nd worst, if not the worst, shooting team on the road in their last 8 as well, which is wild considering that at home they have the 2nd best shooting splits in terms of true shooting and effective field goal percentages there, which, like I said, all the way down to basically the worst on the road over their last 8. Also really about bottom 10 on the season in terms of their offensive production there on the road. So they're just a completely different team who they don't like to win on the road. They don't like to score a ton of points on the road, and they really don't give up that many either, just because they play a lot choppier of a game. And you mentioned John Collins being in there, being a lot more helpful for their defense. I think he's a lot more helpful for their defense than even their offense, to be honest, even though obviously he puts up about 16.5 points a game as well. So I'm leaning definitely best bet here is, to your point, is Milwaukee to win this game, not necessarily by the 5.5, just to win this game. But I also feel much better about the under in this one. Just basically that's what the numbers are telling me, despite those last 3 second legs of a back-to-back for Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw some counterpoints at you though, because the Hawks' recent road games, a lot of the game log here against the Wizards, twice against the Celtics, against the Mavs, against the Raptors, against the Heat, and they actually got to over 240 against the Heat in January, so that's really impressive. But yeah, those teams will make you slow it down. Those teams will make you struggle to score. And the Bucks have shown no reluctance to go fast, even on the second leg of back-to-backs. Their pace still over a 101 in those last 3. Offensive rating 130, defensive rating nearly 120. But I again come back to, as long as the big 3 is active for Milwaukee, I feel confident that they can limit Trae Young enough to win this game, and that's really what I feel more confident about. I mentioned Trey went off for 42 points the last time Drew was out there in November. They were tired, not fully healthy. When they faced each other in April last season, Drew helped hold them to 3 for 17 field goal shooting, though, and the Hawks still got 109 in that game. So I mean that's indicative of how you can continue to score. Bogey went off for 28 points. If you can shoot at all against this Bucks team, if you have multiple shooters, Huerter is questionable but should play tonight as well. So that's another space guy. Danilo Gallinari shooting very well, not playing any defense either. I would be terrified taking the under. Let's say, even if it's unless you can tease it up to like 248, 250, I would not feel good about it. So really, I mean, that's the reality. Is the Bucks team total at 122.5 actually seems great to me, because we're more concerned about the Hawks coming along. And as long as their big three is out there, Milwaukee right now scoring at such a high rate, they're now 18 and 13 to the over at home as home favorites. And I think that they'll be dictating the pace tonight. And looking to break this 3-game skid now against the Hawks, and the way they've been winning lately, the way they've been ramping up is by completely outscoring you. It is not, they're not playing any sort of defense, still looking for some sort of interior presence without Brook Lopez and letting teams fire away from three. Yeah,
that's fair. I think you kind of jostled this in my mind, but I mean, I'm looking at the props right now, even on FanDuel for these players in this game, and there are no Bucks props right now. They've disappeared. So that does tell us that you need to stay on thelines.com and everywhere that you're finding out who's in and out of these lineups tonight, because there's the likelihood that one of those big three does sit for Milwaukee, and that does put a huge damper on our confidence in Milwaukee to just pull this one out with ease in terms of at least winning this game, feeling like that's going to happen. So definitely make sure you're checking that out, because as far as the winning and the spread here for Milwaukee, that is impacted heavily by just one of those guys sitting in terms of Chris, Drew, or Giannis. You mentioned how important Drew is to stopping Trae Young. Missed the first game of the season, then was still hobbled in the second one. Trae's gone for 30 and 42 in his last two against Milwaukee this season. But at the same time, that's not exactly indicative of a healthy Drew Holiday and what he's done against Trae in the two games that he played against Trae, dating back to last season when he was healthy. We're talking about 15 points and 12 points for Trae Young against Drew Holiday. So Drew is super crucial for what they do tonight when you're playing a guy like Trae Young, where you're going to get that much production from that top of the key play, and that spot on the floor, especially with him running those pick and rolls. I love the ability for this team to handle those pick and rolls if they have Drew and Giannis in there coming back, Giannis on the backside. But either way, I think if we've got a healthy roster here, we definitely like the Bucks the most. I still am hesitant to touch that total unless I'm going under, but I'm also really hesitant to go under with the Bucks playing the way that they are. So I think at the end of the day, the Bucks winning this game outright is my favorite bet, and we'll hope that we've got a full squad in tow for Milwaukee tonight. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Check out those other couple videos we have on this big fat 12-game slate on Wednesday night. And until we see you next, happy betting.